Greetings of the day. Today, I am going to discuss the second part of the anecdote Horegallu by Sudhamurti. I have already told you I divide this chapter into two parts. The first part has already been taken. The first part has already been discussed. And today I am going to discuss the second part. In the first part, we discussed the literal meaning of the word Horegallu. We discussed the role of grandfather in the chapter, the role of grandfather alleviating the stress and strain of the poor villages, the stress and strain of the travelers, how the travelers came to his side, shared their problems with him, how they got relief and how they regained the strength and continued the journey with a regained energy. So here, the chapter does not speak about just a Horegallu, just a stone bench. It has some symbolic significance. Horegallu here stands for someone who is patient enough to listen to the problems of others and helping them relieve the stress and strain. So it has a symbolic significance here. Similarly, the word burden has a symbolic significance. Burden stands for the problems that we face in our life, the anxieties, the stress, the strain, the troubles, the obstacles that we face in our life, the trials and tribulations. So here, when people come across a Horegallu, when villagers came across the grandfather who could be considered as a Horegallu, they would be able to unload their burden, take rest, sharing their problems with the grandfather, getting relief and regaining the strength, and after that they started their journey, resumed their journey with a regained vigor. So grandfather can be considered as a Horegallu. Later on in her life, in Sudhamurti's life, she got to see something that reminded her of the stone bench in the village. She was working in Mumbai and she had a colleague there. Her name was Ratna, a middle-aged clerk who was working in her office. She was a graduate and she went about her repetitive, mundane work with, the expression used in the text, with an infectious cheerfulness. A repetitive, mundane work of a clerk. We all know the work of a clerk is repetitive. A clerk often deals with the same file, the same kind of files again and again. It is a repetitive work, it is uninteresting, and the expression used is mundane, something which is repetitive and uninteresting. So she went about her work. She went about her repetitive and mundane work with an infectious cheerfulness. Usually we associate the term infectious with something negative. We associate the term infectious with disease, a disease which is contagious, a disease which spreads. But here the word infectious has a positive connotation. She went about her work with infectious cheerfulness. That means she was a cheerful person. And whenever she spoke to others, whenever she interacted with others, she was able to spread that cheerfulness to others. She was able to radiate her positive energy to others. She was able to radiate that abundance of vitality and energy to others. And every day during lunch hours, she would spend her time with someone in one of the rooms. And Sudhamurti was surprised what these people were talking. And she said, those people were sharing their problems with me. Do you give any solutions for the problems? Ratna says, no. I do not give any solutions to their problems, but I just listen to their problems. And I believe that by just listening to their problems, I may be able to relieve the stress and strain, at least for a short while. Sudhamurti was very incredulous at such a simplistic outlook of life. She was very surprised and she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe by just listening to the problems of others, no one would be able to solve the issues. Ratna says, you may not be able to solve the problems of others by just listening to them, but to a certain extent, at least for a short period of time, these people will get relief so that they can pick up their burden and continue their journey with a regained energy. So here Ratna says, you have to listen to the problems of others with sympathy and without any judgment, without any prejudice. You have to listen to the problems with an open mind. And another important trait of a good counselor, which is being discussed in the text, which is discussed in the anecdote, is that a good counselor should never break the confidence of the people who share their problems with them or with the counselor. But unfortunately, in these days, we find so many counselors. People, students, youngsters, they think that their secrets are safe with these counselors. They share everything with these counselors, but unfortunately, within a few days, they find that their secrets are now public. So, one of the most important traits of a good counselor is that he or she should never break the confidence of the person who shares his or her confidence with the counselor. So, 3 important traits of a counselor are discussed there. Even though Ratna says, I am not a trained counselor, I am not an intellectual. But the traits discussed in the text, in the anecdote are, the first one, you should be patient enough to listen to the problems of others. The second trait is that you have to listen to them with an open mind, without any judgment, without any prejudice. And the third trait is that the seeker should be safe with you. You should never reveal the secrets to others. And Ratna considers it as the worst sin. Breaking the confidence of others can be considered as the worst sin. There is no greater sin than breaking the confidence of others. So she says, people share their problems with me. They get relief for a short period, short time, and that short time is enough for them to regain their strength and continue the journey revitalized or rejuvenated. These words uncannily reminded me of the words of my grandfather, the expression used in the text. Uncannily reminded me. Uncannily means strangely. These words strangely echoed the words of my grandfather who was living in the village. Sudhamurti says these two persons, her grandfather and Ratna, were doing tremendous social service. Even though their work was not rewarded, even though they didn't have any access to greater wealth, even though their work was not being recognized by others, even though their work was not rewarded, acknowledged by others, they were doing tremendous social service. These acts of kindness gave them joy. We often come across that expression. Joy shared is joy multiplied, and grief shared is grief alleviated, grief divided. We know that our happiness can be multiplied when we share it with others, and our grief can be alleviated, can be minimized, can be reduced if we share it with the others. So Ratna and her grandfather believed this simple idea, and that was the reason why they listened to the problems of others in the hope that the grief could be alleviated, could be reduced. Sudhamurti, towards the end of the anecdote, says, whenever I come across a Horegallu, I remember these great persons. I remember my grandfather and Ratna. The last expression in that anecdote, I wish there were many more such people in this world. I wish there were many more such Horegallus in this world to heal the world. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough about the living, make it a better place for you and for me and for the entire human race. These beautiful lines are from a very famous song by Michael Jackson, Heal the World. So, this was the tremendous social service. They were trying to heal the world, even though it was a little act of kindness. Even though it was a little act of kindness, such little acts of kindness make this world a heaven. So, there is an assignment for you. Prepare a short paragraph on the significance of the title Horegallu. Prepare a short paragraph on the title of the anecdote Horegallu. That's all for the day. Thank you.